No UFC action taking place this upcoming Saturday, but I got some good news. We got a solid Bellator 273 fight card taking place this upcoming Saturday. You work your way towards the bottom of the card. We got a lot of fun matchups. You go up to the main card. We're talking about superior talent in the MMA world. I'm very excited to dive into this fight card here. Of course, Bellator not putting out as many fight cards as the UFC, but when they have, as of recently, they're starting to pick it up. I like what I'm seeing from them, and I'm excited for today's episode. So it's about that time. Let's dive into this fight card. Let's find a couple spots where we can make some money. Let's get into it.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.
What is up, you guys? Bellator 273. We have the heavyweight title unification match between Bader and Moldavsky. Of course, Moldavsky winning the interim championship after he took out Tim Johnson. Ryan Bader, you guys know what's been going on with him. Obviously, he was a double champ over in Bellator as of recently. Recently lost his light heavyweight title, though, to Vakim Nemkov, a very, very dangerous Russian fighter. So Ryan Bader has his hands full once again here. Fight taking place in Phoenix, Arizona. So luckily for me, this fight card's not taking place in Connecticut, and I don't have to pronounce Uncasville. I guess for a while I was calling it Uncasville, and it really upset some of you guys. But again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Not a lot of people really know the city of Uncasville, and again, I will call it Uncasville just to get you a little upset there. But I'm just messing around with you guys. This fight is taking place in Phoenix, Arizona, a place that I lived before for a year, and a great fight city. Of course, we got a lot of hometown fighters on the fight card in Ryan Bader. You guys know the big-time ASU wrestler back in the day, and doing his thing out there. And again, a lot of top-level fighters fighting out of Arizona, legends in the game, Benson, Henderson. And then you even have some young talent that's coming up out of that area. A teammate of Ryan Bader and Sullivan, Cauley, an ASU wrestler as well, who's only 2-0 as a professional. And I briefly want to touch upon this fight to kick things off. So Big Tuna, I'm a big fan of Big Tuna's. This is a guy that I've had the pleasure to chat it up with on IG a little bit. He follows me back over there. He's liking the post. So you guys know, I do got some respect for Ben Parish. But besides that, cutting to the chase, Ben Parish is a guy that is a decently well-rounded fighter, and he's a tough dude, and he's a fun guy to watch. We saw him in his Bellator debut, came in as a big-time underdog against Christian Edwards, a guy that a lot of people are high on, and Big Tuna cracked him. So Tuna showed that he has some power in his hands. Parrish has some submission victories throughout the limited amount of pro experience he has, showing to be a well-rounded fighter. I think people may be a little bit harsh on him, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily wrong, but based on the fact he carries a little bit of extra weight, maybe you want to see him diet a little bit better, take things a little bit more seriously. But sometimes that's how certain fighters' physiques are, to be quite honest. So I don't want to really go in on him too much there. But this is a guy that maybe we see him, or maybe we just put a little asterisk. Let's see how he looks going into the weigh-in and whatnot. Maybe he's taking things even more serious. And this is a guy that you could really keep an eye on at least as far as fighting as the first fight on a Bellator fight card against a guy that's only 2-0. But here's the catch. Sullivan, Cauley, Sully, he's 2-0 as a pro, but this is a former Arizona State University wrestler training with a guy like Ryan Bader, and being around all those guys. We know that guys that come from this route, from wrestling at ASU and getting in training over at Power MMA and getting involved in that type of surroundings and working your way into the MMA scene, it's been very successful for a couple of guys, right? Aaron Simpson, CB Dalloway, Ryan Bader, and I'm forgetting a couple guys too. I mean, there's been a lot of guys that have gone the route that Sullivan Cauley is going. And you guys know how it goes, man. When you have a solid wrestling background, it really does carry a lot of weight, and Sully does. You guys know the ASU wrestling program is one of the top wrestling programs in the country, and so that's what he has going for him right now. Still needs to get a lot more experience in the MMA world. Only 2 professional fights, but has about 5 or 6 amateur fights. So he's getting the experience under his belt there. As far as this fight taking place on the feet, I gotta edge Big Tuna here. Big Tuna has shown that he could crack. I feel that he shows to be a little bit more comfortable on the feet. from what I've seen there. And Sully still has more to show there. From the limited amount of tape you could pull up on Sullivan, obviously he gonna lean on the wrestling. We've seen him lean on the wrestling, even in his one fight before he fought over in Bellator, relying heavily on the wrestling and of course getting the job done, fighting lower level MMA fighters. And you take a guy like this who has that wrestling background, he's going to pretty much dominate those types of guys. But now he's taking on the guy in Ben Parish that's been around the block to an extent. But let's also keep in mind, again, only 6 professional fights. But that does have that big victory over Christian Edwards. Before that, he had the leg injury against Logan Woods. And then, like I said, Ben Parish has shown to be decently well-rounded as well, not just cracking with the heavy shots in the hands, but a couple submission victories there too. So keep an eye also, if Sully tries to to force this fight down to the mat, keep an eye on Big Tuna possibly setting up a submission as well. Tough fight to call. I do believe that Sully might be able to lean on the wrestling here and really grind out a victory. I really do edge him there, and you guys know I very much so favor guys that have that wrestling background like Sully. And Sully's winning in life too right now. Take a look at the old lady. He even tagged her, so you can take a look at her, which I don't know why guys would tag their girl. That's something that I probably wouldn't do. You're just going to have creeps clicking on it and, doing what they do with the pages. You guys know what you do with these girls' Instagram pages. So, but he's doing his thing. As much as I do want to pick Big Tuna here, and I know that Big Tuna has the potential to crack, I got to be honest, I'm going to roll with the ASU product and Sullivan Cauley. I just think that wrestling background will help him solidify some rounds, and I love the surroundings that he's around right now. Training with a guy like Bader, going into a big unification heavyweight championship fight, being around all those guys over there in Arizona. You got to expect growth in his game, and he's only 25 years old. So the amount of progress that we'll see from him fight to fight will be substantial, and I expect to see some growth here. I'm gonna edge Sullivan Cauley, but do not be surprised if Big Tuna pulls up with the upset. Like I said, he has some avenues for victory, maybe a little bit more crafty with the jiu-jitsu, and then also an edge with the striking as well, being a little bit more comfortable on the feet. And Big Tuna right around a plus 175 underdog, with Sullivan Cauley right around a minus 210 right now, and the line going back and forth a little bit. Actually, right now, right around a minus 190 if we were to refresh this. So people respecting Big Tuna. I'm pulling for Big Tuna in a major way. Hope he pulls the fight off. Let's see what he could do as far as defending the takedowns and being a crafty fighter. So we're going to slide through the card just a bit. 2 featherweight Brazilian fighters squaring off. Another featherweight matchup of Lucas Brennan and Ben Lugo. We have the Russian taking on the American Blaine Shutt. And then we're going to talk quickly about this fight. Dalton Rosta taking on Dwayne Johnson. Yes, Dwayne Johnson actually gave himself the nickname The Rock, or he allowed other people to give him that nickname without putting up a fight and telling them, don't you ever call me that again. So that is definitely something that's going against him here. But more than that, he's got Hercules in front of him. So he goes from having one of the worst nicknames in the MMA game compared to a guy that has one of the best nicknames in the game, in Hercules. And the name is very fitting. Dalton Rosta comes in phenomenal shape from a physical standpoint. But Dalton Rosta, this guy, so if you're not familiar with him, his first fight took place in Bellator. He's 5-0. He's 5-0, obviously, in the Bellator promotion. Undefeated as an amateur. He has the wrestling background. He is very, very legit. This guy is a specimen. Training at American Top Team, which is something I love. And you see him putting in work with the crew over here. You see guys like Francisco Trinaldo, but need I say more? You guys know there's an entire stable of guys over there. And you see him over here with Sabah Hamasi, who's also fighting on the fight card. So great to see these guys putting in work as they make their way to the card. But like I said, Hercules, very fitting. This guy's in phenomenal shape. He's very physically imposing. And just to be honest, I don't really think Dwayne Johnson has shown anything that's that impressive. And I think that he's in over his head here. So Bellator kind of grooming Dalton in the right way, getting him that experience. And I expect Dalton Rosta just to be a little bit too much for Dwayne Johnson there. As far as taking him by finish, I mean, you saw him get a couple finishes to kick off his Bellator career and his professional career, but as of recently, 2 decisions, but a little bit of a step up in competition in those fights, right? Ty Werder and Tony Johnson. I mean, if you're going to lean finish or no finish, I wouldn't be surprised if Dalton steps it up here as his overall skill set starts to excel, and maybe he pulls off the finish against Dwayne here. But either way, domination. The line is pretty ridiculous, though, so keep that in mind. I mean, he's up around minus 800. And again, for those of you guys that are going to get upset for me picking favorites throughout this fight card, this is a Bellator fight card. What do you guys expect from me? I'll try to pull a couple dogs here if I could, but Bellator is known for putting matchups together that are not necessarily so even. And I'm going to call it like I see it. When I break down the tape, I am not going to pick a fighter that is not on the level of another fighter there. So, but again, I do expect Dalton, Rosta to come in here, handle business, push the pace, be stronger in the clinch, use his wrestling to get some takedowns and whatnot. Let's see if we can see some evolution with the striking, and he gets the job done. As far as from a betting line, though, at minus 800, what are you going to do with that? And I don't really think that that's something you really want to do. I don't know. I mean, that's up to you there. If you're a guy that likes to chase those big lines and parlay them together, I mean, he's probably going to get the victory. I mean, I really do expect him to win this fight, but see what you could do with that. I would just probably stay away, though, and keep an eye on Rosta moving down the line, though. We got Saad Awad taking on Chris Gonzalez, the Team Alpha Male product, who came into his last fight undefeated, a very decorated wrestler. Chris Gonzalez, a guy that is, he has some notable accolades, right? A 2016 U.S. Greco-Roman World Team participant. I mean, this guy really has a solid background coming into MMA. But there's some question marks about him. There's some things that are looking good for him, and there's some things that are looking, a little questionable. And we'll start with the thing that's promising. First and foremost, training with Team Alpha Male. I love where he's putting in that work, and I do expect to see major strides in his game. I mean, there's no question that those guys know what they're doing. He's already 30 years old with only 7 professional fights. So, I mean, doesn't have an extreme amount of time to be getting groomed. He needs to start to step it up. But his last fight against Giyoto Yamauchi, first off, Yamauchi, the most submission victories in Bellator history. A guy that's very underrated on the feet as well. Chris Gonzalez was over his head in that fight. Yamauchi really shined against Gonzalez there. But the thing that was questionable to me was the fact that when Yamauchi was really starting to get the better of the striking exchanges, is that Gonzalez wasn't even able to use any type of wrestling or grappling. When he was in a, I guess like a fight or flight type situation, he was in big time trouble. He couldn't even try to scramble for a takedown attempt. He kind of just gave in and started to get cracked, and then he got finished. And I didn't like that, because I would have liked to have seen him at least do something with the grappling, whether that was even taking a wild shot, getting the takedown, and then even getting submitted. But I wanted to see something in regards to that wrestling and that strength, that, to see that he could dominate with that, at least against guys that don't have the type of submission skills like Yamauchi, because Yamauchi probably would have ended up just subbing him anyway. But I didn't like how he was hesitant, and to me it looked like a guy that's not necessarily so comfortable in the entire art of fighting. And if you guys that train, you guys know what I'm talking about. There's some guys that come over from the wrestling scene. They've been wrestling for years. They're super tough, but they're not always super comfortable with getting punched in the nose and getting jabbed up, and that range of striking and how to close that distance and use the wrestling. And I mean, I still think that Gonzalez has a lot of potential. But the thing that's going against him here is that Saad Awad is the Assassin's the nickname. That's a perfect nickname. Saad Awad is a guy that carries big time power. I remember watching this live way back in the day. To me, this was back when Bellator. I know it may sound funny, but this is like prime Bellator to me. I know you would expect me to feel better about Bellator now. They should be growing as a promotion, which I'm not saying they're not, but back around this era, it's just Bellator was the shit there, man. You had Jimmy Smith as the commentator. There was a lot of guys that were fighting in the Bellator scene that really were some of the best fighters in the world, and there still are. But to me, this was just the golden era of Bellator. And Saad Awad, I remember him knocking Will Brooks out. You guys know I have that story with Will Brooks. If you guys didn't hear it and you want to hear it, whatever, let me know. But it was a very funny, awkward situation with Will Brooks bumping into him at the bar. He's not a good guy. I promise you, Will Brooks is not a good guy. Calling him out right now. If any of you know him or you bump into him, the dude is not a good guy. I promise you that. But I love to see I loved to see that Saad Awad got that knockout. But again, that was just one fight of any where Saad Awad used his boxing to really put it on, guys. Now he's 38 years old. He's not that same fighter. I do believe he still has a good amount of power, coming off a knockout over Nate Andrews as well. Before that, having a little bit of a tough road, but fighting some of the best fighters on the Bellator scene. Brandon Gritz, Gyoti Yamauchi, we just talked about him. Another submission victory for him. Lost to Paul Daly, big time striker. So I'm going to edge Saad Awad as far as, I don't think we have a choice here. The MMA experience that Saad has, he's going to be a lot more comfortable in the feet. He's going to have a lot more experience in there. Chris Gonzalez is going to have that youth and that raw ability going for him. He's going to need to use the wrestling, though. He cannot hesitate with the wrestling. I don't want to see him on the feet trying to feel Saad out too much and trying to see what he could do there. He could do that for a very, very little bit of time, but I want to see him close the distance. I want to see him use his clinch to his takedowns. I want to see him going for that. I think he could pull some of those takedowns off, and I think that once he gets some of those takedowns, I think Saad will lose a little bit of that pop on his punches. We talked about that a little bit with the Francis Ngannou situation. Some of these guys have that real power. You got to close the distance. It's about game plan, high fighter IQ. I know it's easier said than done, but Gonzalez needs to push the grappling exchanges here. Saad will lose a little bit of that pop and whatnot. And both these guys, pretty much the same exact size here. Saad having a 1-inch reach, but other than that, pretty much the same. Saad, the older fighter. I'm going to take Chris Gonzalez here. I think that he bounces back with the victory. Again, a lot of raw ability. And this is a guy that I think that's going to be extremely hungry. He knows how to win. He's been winning his entire combat career before even getting into MMA. This guy's a winner. But, hopefully they're polishing him up. And you see him over here at the CSA gym. So he's also putting in work in different types of gyms over there, working on his Muay Thai. But I know that he's surrounded by some good people. And I expect him to game plan properly coming into this fight. And I think if he does that, he gets the victory. So we will take Chris Gonzalez to win the fight. Now, from a betting perspective, I'm not crazy about the line. Chris Gonzalez right around up to a -275, and over at BetMGM, I'm not crazy about that line. I think there's more value in Saad Awad, and you could even look maybe at a prop bet for a knockout or a finish from Saad Awad. There's definitely that ability there. We've seen Gonzalez just finished, and he looked a little bit hesitant on the feet at times. Saad Awad will bring it, and he'll throw bombs. So, again, I think Gonzalez gets this fight done, guys. But I'm telling you, more value on Saad Awad. So listen to what I'm saying here. Don't just say, oh, you're picking favorites. I think the value is on Saad Awad. I wouldn't touch Gonzalez and a parlay or really doing anything with him there. All right, guys? That's how I feel about the fight. Isn't it funny how quick the MMA world will turn on you based on just some of your recent results? And I think we see that a little bit with Darrion Caldwell. They see the 3 losses out of the last 5 fights. This is a guy that everybody was extremely high on just a couple years ago. The Wolf, Darrion Caldwell, a very polished wrestler, a very athletic fighter, a guy that really has some potential. Now 34 years old. I mean, this isn't a guy that we're waiting to see what he can reach as far as from a skill standpoint. This is a guy that we pretty much have an idea of who he is, but let's also take into consideration some of the level of fighters that he's been fighting as of recently, because I know you people are judging him for these losses, but lost to Leandro Higo, who I am actually very high on. I think Higo's a very talented Brazilian fighter. I love where he trains. I love the people he surrounds himself with. He's just a dangerous, well-rounded fighter. That was a very closely contested matchup, man. Higo's top level over on the Bellator scene. AJ McKee, you guys know how high I am on AJ McKee, and I've been high on him from the beginning. I've been telling you guys about AJ McKee from the very beginning. Run the tape back. It's all here on YouTube. I've been definitely feeling that AJ was going to be a big time superstar from way back. All right, that loss to him there. AJ's going out there. He's finishing everybody. Taking out Pitbull. He's taking all types of guys. So it is what it is there. Now the 2 losses to Kyoji Horiguchi. I know he just lost to Sergio Pettis, but remember, he was dominating that fight. He is one of the nastiest fighters in the world at the division. Okay, those 2 losses, even going to decision with him the second fight, it is what it is. All right. And then you go back. Yeah, he had the loss against Joe Timangelo. I think he fights out of Guam, I believe. But bounced back and got the redemption in that next fight. Took out Eduardo Dantes. Had a victory over Leandro Higo already. Noah Lahat, don't really care about that. Henry Corrales, a tough dude. Adam Voorhees. I mean, the Night Wolf could fight, man. Victories over Joe Warren, the Olympian, Sean Bunch, a tough, small little AKA guy. You know, he's just, I think that Caldwell is a talented fighter. And now you got Enrique Barzola coming over to the Bellator scene. I like Barzola. Barzola is a guy, it's actually interesting. Just a couple weeks ago, maybe like a month or two ago, I was kind of wondering what's been going on with Turbo, right? Was El Turbo? El Fuerte, excuse me. I think they call him Turbo, though, in English, right? Barzola, this guy, you know, always a very energetic fighter. I was wondering what's been going on with him, and it's been a little bit since he's fought, right towards the beginning of the pandemic here against Hani Yahya. He had that majority draw, lost to Movsar, Evlavoyov before that, very talented fighter. This guy has been known to have some close fights, that's for sure. Split decision loss. There's some questionable fights here, though. I'm not that high on Kyle Bochniak. Chris Avila, we don't really care about that. You know, these guys are lower level fighters that were actually fighting in the UFC at the time. I really don't think they were UFC caliber opponents. Brandon Davis, Matt Basette, Bobby Moffitt, split, lost to Kevin Aguilar. These are guys that are not even going to be hanging around in the UFC. I guarantee you that. You look at this list, the guys that are already gone and guys that will be gone. This is not up into the Movsar fight. This is a very low level list of UFC fighters. I want to be clear about that. But that being said, Barzola is a well-rounded fighter, of course, training at an AKA. He is a guy that really pushes the pace in his fights. Got to give him credit for that. I mean, this guy, if you're not up to par with your cardio, this is a guy that's going to be in your face from start to finish. Well-rounded, like I said, high output on the feet, very high output with his striking, can also wrestle. Of course, you know, training at AKA, you know, this guy's been working on his wrestling for a long time, has some good experience, is going to actually have more professional fights here than Caldwell. 32 years old, a little bit closer to the prime of his career. So he has some things going for him as well. Caldwell will have a 3-inch reach advantage in this fight. And this is a good fight. This is a great Bellator debut for Barzola, taking on a guy in Caldwell who's really become a staple of the Bellator promotion. He's one of those guys, you know, his name carries weight in the Bellator scene. I love this matchup here. We'll get a little idea of how these two guys, certain caliber fighters from the UFC coming into the Bellator scene, you get a little bit of a gauge of how they're going to look there. I expect Caldwell to look good in this fight. I expect Caldwell to be the more athletic guy, a little bit quicker. Although Turbo's quick with the striking and whatnot, I expect Caldwell to be a little bit more athletic with the striking, a little bit more rangy. We talked about the 3-inch reach advantage. He'll also have a 3-inch height advantage. So the more rangy fighter, Caldwell has that wrestling background. He could wrestle as well, although Barzola could too. This is going to be a fun fight here. I think Darrion Caldwell gets it done. I know he's extremely hungry after losing those 2 fights in a row against high-level opponents. He has to be motivated here. I know Barzola has been away from the cage for a while, but I guarantee you he's been sharpening his skills the entire time. So that's the interesting thing too. Barzola might step into the Bellator cage and look like the most impressive version we've ever seen from him. At the end of the day, though, I do like Caldwell, who is going to be actually a slight underdog, a very slight underdog here. You can catch him right around even, opened up right around a +115. So people respecting Barzola. And like I said, keep an eye on Barzola because I do think that I do think we'll see the best version that we've ever seen from him. I think that he's really been getting prepared for this moment here. And this is a good fight. I'm excited for it. And I will take the Wolf, Darrion Caldwell, to bounce back with the victory. Sabah Hamasi taking on Jaleel Willis. Both these guys coming off tough losses. Hamasi now losing 2 in a row. But saying that, we also must take into consideration that Hamasi actually has looked better as of recently. He's looked like he has evolved with his game. Of course, we saw it in the Paul Daly matchup against Paul Daly. He looked very good towards the beginning of that fight. Did fade a little bit, but as far as his overall skill set, it definitely has risen. This is a guy that's still evolving, even at 33 years old. I mean, a long time American Top Team product. We are seeing his skill set really step up to the plate here. And then, of course, the loss against Andrei Koreshkov. You guys know I'm extremely high on Andre there. To be able to go to a decision there, which that was a good thing after seeing him kind of fade in the second round against Daly, being able to go 3 rounds with a guy in Koreshkov who's an absolute killer. Sabah Homasi, this is a guy I've told you before. This guy was a male stripper down here in South Florida. I used to see him at the bars acting wild and stuff, some of the local bars back in the day. Actually, completely coincidentally, even when I knew who he was, I bumped into his sister way back in the day when I was living the club life, and was hanging out with his sister in one of the Fort Lauderdale clubs and didn't even know it towards the end of the night. And then she said, hey, you know, days later, weeks later, you know, I kept in touch with her, and she said, hey, why don't you watch my brother? He fight, you like that MMA stuff? My brother fights MMA. He fights in this promotion called Bellator. I said, oh, of course I know that. And at the time, you know, I'm going to pull it up real quick because it's kind of funny. At the time, I want to say, I remember he lost the fight too. I'm going to say that it was this fight here. So this was back in 2013. Yeah, I'm going to say it was this fight. It was his debut, his Bellator debut. He took on Ricky Legary Jr. And I remember he lost the fight, and I'm pretty much positive that was it. So way back in the day, man, funny stories. Yeah, and he has a younger sister. And if she's watching, you know, those are the good old days there, 2013, the sleek chic. But back to fight business, all right? I don't want to go too much and put people's personal stuff out there, but I want to make these shows a little exciting and intriguing to you guys. And I have some very interesting stories that I can go on about. I spent the night one time in the owner of the Black Zillion's house, who since passed away. I forgot his name, but I did spend the night in his house. I don't really want to go too much into that either, but you know, he used to have a little house sitter, and he has a very, very nice house. And but you know, I got some real interesting stories, man. I'll tell you guys. So maybe one day I could share them a little bit more so, but I gotta be careful, man. I can't be talking too much like that. But Sabah Hamasi, like I said, looking good as of recently. But he needs to get a victory here. That's 2 losses in a row now. Coming into this fight as a 2-1 underdog against a guy in Jaleel. Jaleel, a very athletic fighter, has shown some promise on the feet, and needs to continue to work on his overall game. We saw him get caught in that submission in his last fight against Barakamov. You know, that was a very tough fight for him, though. I think that his opponent is very much underrated, and that's a guy you're going to be hearing a lot more from. I still believe that Willis is a very talented fighter that has a lot of potential, and Sabah has shown flashes on the feet, looking very good on the feet as of recently. But I do favor Willis. I favor Willis on the feet. I think Willis will be a little bit quicker, a little bit more athletic, and something, you know, when you break down tape on these two guys, I feel like Willis will be the guy that will look better as the fight goes on in the feet. Hamasi might have his little moments here and there, and he's a well-rounded fighter as well. But I expect Willis to be getting a little bit of the better of Hamasi on the feet. I do edge him there, and we'll take a look at these guys from a physical standpoint. Pretty much the same. I mean, you got Hamasi with an inch height advantage, but also being at a 1.5 reach disadvantage, there. And the sleek chic, he needs to pull this victory off, man, because he really, like I said, it's been looking good, but you got to have some W's on your resume. You go back to his last victory, that was against Bobby Volker. That was a fight where, you know, Bobby Volker, ex-UFC fighter, way up there in age at the time. So when you really look into that, you know, the Curtis Millender fight, he was able to out-wrestle Curtis, exploit his ground game, and then you go back to the Mika Terrell fight. So if Sabah really wants to get some momentum here, he needs to go out here and get a finish over a guy in Jaleel Willis, who a lot of people are you know, high on. They have high praise for the guy. So you see the line reflecting that right now. Money coming in on Willis, opened at a -225 on Bet MGM, and now at a -275. And I tend to agree with that sentiment. I'm not sure if I'm crazy about a line like that. I think the line might be a little bit off. I think maybe a little bit more value on Hamasi. But at the end of the day, I think that Willis gets the job done here. I really do. He's going to be motivated to bounce back with the victory. This is a guy that has a lot of talent on the feet. I expect him to be a little bit quicker to the punch and a little bit more athletic in there. And I will take Willis to get the job done. We've seen Willis and grueling fights before too. I mean, he's shown heart. Was able to end up getting his hand raised in that Mark Lemminger fight. Mark Lemminger landed some big shots. They went to war in that fight. Jaleel didn't always look amazing throughout that entire fight, but stood strong, and he did enough to get his arm raised. So showing that he's not just a front runner type of guy. I feel like Homasi kind of fades a little bit in his fights, a little bit more so. I don't know if that has something to do with his partying style and whatnot. I don't even know if he's still doing that, but I do know back in the day, this guy had a reputation for being a little bit of a wild dude. So you got to wonder how disciplined he is as well. And I will side with Jaleel Willis to win the fight. Henry Corrales taking on Aiden Lee. Fight taking place in the featherweight division. This is a fight that I'm very interested to see how it plays out. Aiden Lee, only 10-5 as a professional, but I do actually... I do value the skill set that he brings into the cage. This is a kid that's been pretty intriguing to me. Very rangy for the division. He's only 26 years old. Likes to throw a lot of kicks. Has nasty jiu-jitsu. Coming off a big-time victory against Ostrov. Got that rear naked choke, a beautiful rear naked choke, just about 2 months ago. So not that long ago. Stepping right back in there. You guys know before that he had the very tough fight against Aaron Pico. Both these guys... a common opponent of Aaron Pico's there. Fights played out a little bit differently. Corrales got the nasty knockout over Pico. If you guys remember, that's when Pico was making some of those mental errors, engaging in those wars where if he would have slowed things down, I think he could have been, I think he could be an undefeated fighter right now, but he's been learning on the job. Aiden Lee, even though he got pretty much dominated by Aaron Pico, he still showed some flashes to me, man. He's nasty. He's aggressive. There was moments in that fight where he was taken down, controlled on the mat, but then, bounced right back up. Now, of course, eventually he did get subbed in that fight. But again, he showed that, he has some wicked kicks and that he's a scrappy scrambler on the mat. And again, bounces back in his next fight with the submission victory. I am high on his jiu-jitsu skills. I edge him here on the mat. I think he's a little bit more dangerous. Whereas Henry Corrales, on the other hand, is he's a bruiser, man. This guy is a tough dude. Kind of reminds me of almost of like a street fighter. If you guys catch my drift. I mean, Henry Corrales is just the type of dude that's like, he's willing to knuckle up with you. Big time boxing skills. We saw him in that Aaron Pico fight, was not intimidated or phased at the least. Stood in a firefight and ended up clipping him and getting that knockout. Comes in phenomenal shape, big time power. We talk about some of these guys that are staples of the Bellator promotion. Henry Corrales is right up there. Henry's been doing his thing over in the Bellator scene for quite a while, and he's 35 years old. I mean, he's getting to that age where I think he still has enough to perform, but he's getting to the age where I don't know how much longer we'll be seeing him fight at peak form. But as of now, it looks to be in phenomenal shape, and I guess there's really no reason to turn our back on him at this point. Coming off a victory over the Ukrainian fighter and Parubchenko, 16-2. That was a big victory. But did get submitted by Johnny Campbell by rear naked choke in the fight before that. And that's something I want you guys to keep an eye on, because Aiden Lee, like I said, Aiden Lee's got some jiu-jitsu skills, and I give Aiden Lee that edge fighting from the outside. He has a 5-inch reach advantage, and he can kick, man. He can kick. This is a fight, guys. I'm going to let you know right now, I'm extremely torn on it. Very much torn on it. I like both these guys, and I see both guys having avenues to win the fight. And you know what, man? I'm going to go with my initial gut. I've been back and forth in this fight. I'm going to take Aiden Lee, who should be a slight dog as of right now, I believe. And I think some action may have came in on him, though. Aiden Lee. Action coming in on Aiden Lee a little bit. Going from 110 to minus 125 at the moment over on DraftKings. Bet MGM. He's still a dog. He was a plus 150. Now he's about even. So it depends on what book. He's an underdog over at Bet MGM. It depends what book you're working with. It's a pick'em type of fight, right? I'm gonna go with Aiden Lee. I think his confidence is going to be at an all-time high after he just pulled off that victory. He has a lot of potential. He has to believe in himself here. Henry Corrales will try to be a roadblock in his way with a lot more experience and just being a bruiser. But I think Aiden Lee can throw some nasty kicks, and I think that he has potential to do something on the mat if it goes there as well. And Aiden Lee is just a feisty, aggressive fighter. And I'm going to pick him. I'm going to stick with that pick. I'm going to take the Englishman, Aiden Lee, and I'll be rooting for him there. The former UFC lightweight champion of the world, Benson Henderson, the former WEC lightweight champion of the world, a household name in the MMA world, Benson Henderson. I remember back in the day watching fights in college, having people over the house and whatnot when I was, an MMA fanatic from way back, obviously, and having people at my apartment that weren't even in the fights. I'd have the WEC matches on, and I remember some girl or whatever, someone in the house saying like, what the heck is up with that guy's body? What a specimen, the females love this guy's legs. I mean, he has absolute tree trunks. I mean, Benson Henderson is a physical specimen. You take a look at him throwing a crazy axe type kick into Nate Diaz's guard. If you guys remember this fight, Nate Diaz was severely overmatched in that fight. Benson Henderson, a very well-rounded fighter. A guy that was hit with the Showtime kick, though. Let's not forget that. One of the greatest fights we've ever seen, that WEC lightweight matchup with him and Anthony Pettis. I believe that's where he lost the belt. You see him going to war with Frankie Edgar. I mean, this guy has been in there with some big-time names, especially back in the day. I mean, guys that were really running the game at the time. Of course, the multiple fights with Frankie Edgar, he always did just enough to edge out those fights, even though sometimes I think they were a little bit questionable. The close fights there. Benson Smooth Henderson now lost 3 in a row. Lost to Michael Chandler. Lost to Jason Jackson, very much underrated and on the rise. And then lost to Brent Primus. So Benson Henderson, man, really having a tough time. And unfortunately enough for him, he's going to lose here again. He's going to lose. That's going to be 4 fights in a row. This guy, Islam Mamedov, I'm going to cut to the chase. Islam, if you guys aren't familiar with him, this is a guy that was fighting over and, in the World Series of Fighting before it changed over to the PFL. And he was a household name over there. He's been fighting very high level opponents for some time. And it's even more than that. Who he trains with. He trains with all the killer Dagestani fighters, you name it, Islam Makhachev, all those guys. Trains with all of them. And you see him here with Magomedov. Who else we got? I mean, there's all types of guys. Tager Ulanbekov. You guys know who I'm talking about here. He trains with some of the best in the world. These guys are literally cut from a different cloth. Like literally. I mean, they're just a different type of fighter. They're different types of fighters. And Islam is up there with all those guys. Coming off a tough fight over Brent Primus. Wasn't his best performance, but I've seen him go in there and really stun on guys time and time again. You run it back to the Nathan Schultz fight. You could actually pull it up on YouTube. It's over at on PFL on their channel. Looked phenomenal in that fight. So disciplined and so patient in there. Loves to pump the jab. He's very cerebral when he's in there fighting. This isn't the guy that jumps into things. He takes his time and he picks the right moments to make his move. Excellent grappling. He'll sit there. On the feet, he'll be very technical. He'll pump the jab, hit you with a couple straight shots, a couple kicks. Before you know it, he's in on a single. He's cutting corners. He's ripping you down to the mat, and he's doing work down there as well. So as high as I've been on Benson Henderson throughout the years, Benson now up there in age. Benson Henderson, 38 years old. Islam, 32, more towards the prime of his career. He's training over in Jersey, New Jersey now. They call that Little Dagestan, and I expect him to show up here and to get his hand raised. How he does it, does he get a finish? Benson Henderson only finished in one of his last 3 losses. Islam, a guy that, coming off a split decision victory, he has well-rounded skills. He has different ways he could finish the fight. I would lean towards possibly a decision. I think Islam will be calculated in there. He'll do enough to get his arm raised, probably via decision here. That's the route I'm going to go. Keep an eye on this guy Islam, man. This guy Islam, he's another one of them. 21-1 as a professional, a very, very solid resume, and I will pick him to win the fight here. And it looks like he's on a good diet here, getting his little eggs and some spinach in, and over there in Dagestan, and he will be my pick. And did I touch upon the line real quick? We'll pull up the line. He's almost a 4-1 favorite at this point, up to a -450, coming from -350 over at BetMGM. So I mean, people are on to it as well. People see what he's about to do, and if you want to throw that in a parlay or something like that. I know Benson Henderson has the name. I don't expect Benson to be able to get his hand raised in this fight. I don't see it. So I do have Islam Mamedov to win the fight. Hey, guys, real quick, 2 things coming at you. If you're looking to work with me for my official plays, do not hesitate to reach out to me. All my contact information's there below. I'm always here. I'm always willing to work with any of you guys. I am going to have action taking place this upcoming weekend on the Bellator fight card. So do understand that. Just because there's no UFC doesn't mean nothing. I will have a play on this Bellator card. I have a spot to make some money, so hit me up if you guys are interested. And besides that, if you're looking for a new sports book, I also always am willing to give you guys that deal. If you sign up through my referral link, and I'll give you guys the criteria. You just have to make a deposit of $50 or more, which is nothing. and I will give you my referral link. If you guys sign up through my referral link, I will give you guys an entire fight card free. I will hook you guys up, and I'm very lenient, man. I'll hook you guys up one way or another. I'm not, strictly by the book. I'm only giving you one play, man. I'll work with you guys, man. I'll make sure it's worth your while. So if you want to sign up this upcoming week, I'm giving you the Bellator play. Hey, I'll even sneak in the upcoming UFC fight card from the following weekend too. How about that? All right, guys. So it's there for you. And that takes us to the unification title match of Ryan Bader and Valentin Moldavsky. Ryan Bader did just lose his light heavyweight championship. He lost it a little bit ago, right, to Vadim Nemkov. Bounced back with the victory over Lyoto Machida, and then loses again to Corey Anderson. Got finished in that fight. Ryan Bader also now creeping up to his 40s. He still has a little bit of time, but he's almost there. About a year and a half away from being 40, man. That's up there. Now, you can get away with that a little bit longer at this weight division, in the higher weight divisions. And Ryan Bader is a guy that comes in phenomenal shape. I don't think the age is necessarily the biggest thing going against him here. I think it's that his striking defense has been lacking. And it's always been lacking a little bit, right? He looks for those big power punches, and if he hits you, he will take your head off. But he's always been vulnerable to counter shots. We saw him hit with a counter shot against Glover Teixeira, I believe, back in the day. A nice hook. We've seen him caught in a couple fights. But like I said, when he puts it on his opponent, he's absolutely devastating. Big time power. Of course, he has the wrestling going for him. Ryan Bader, a former Arizona State University wrestler. So that is something I definitely want to talk about here for a second. In Moldavsky's fight against Linton Vassell, if you run that tape back, that was a fight where Vassell had some success in the wrestling department. Vassell got a couple takedowns in that fight, and that is something that I do believe Ryan Bader could implement and could replicate. If he sticks to the game plan of strictly wrestling, I think that will benefit him here. And I'll tell you why, because yes, Ryan Bader does have that potential to land a big time bazooka shot and end this fight. We've seen him do that. But the more these guys exchange shots on the feet, I think that it does favor Moldavsky in a major way, especially in a fight that should be, 5 rounds, right? This is a 5-round fight. Of course it is. It's a title fight. What am I talking about? Brain fart there. Thinking that he lost his belt, but of course, the double champ here, or was the double champ. So in a 5-round fight, Moldavsky is a guy that's very precise with his strikes, and the more that these guys are exchanging shots on the feet and Bader doesn't hit him with that devastating shot, I think Moldavsky is going to be picking him apart, and he's going to be hurting him. And you see him over there with his teammate Vadim Nemkov, who was a common opponent, took out Bader. So they've been training. The team has been training for Bader before as well. But again, like if you want to talk about Valentin Moldavsky's fight against Linton Vassell, he did damage against Ernest James. Okay, in that Ernest James fight, he was absolutely putting it on him, bloodying him up, and got the finish there. I expect Valentin Moldavsky to be able to tag up Ryan Bader on the feet. And Ryan Bader will be looking for that haymaker, that big-time bazooka shot. And I'm going to bank on the guy that's going to be touching you up more so. And at this weight class, you don't even have to put that much power into your shots, right? Moldavsky just has to touch him up, bloody him up, and he could hurt Bader. And Bader's been getting hurt a little bit easier as of recently, right? After going in there, excuse me here, let me pull up his resume real quick, Ryan Bader, one more time. I want to run through it real quick, at least as of recently. After doing work for a while, man, he was really, really on a hot streak, taking out Alir Latifi, Nogueira, comes over to Bellator, takes out Phil Davis, Linton Vassell, finished him, a common opponent. Big Muhammad Lawal, Big Mo, Matt Mitrione, Fedor Emelianenko gets the knockout there. The Czech Congo fight, scratched that. And then he goes in there against Vadim Nemkov and gets styled on the feet. That's the fight I want to talk about. Was really, really styled on in that fight. Again, if he doesn't land that big shot and you're in there exchanging shots, I mean, Nemkov was able to pick him apart. He was a much more polished striker. Corey Anderson just hurt him again as well. Gets the finish. I think Valentin Moldavsky, although a guy that hasn't been necessarily looking for the finish in all of his fights, coming off 4 decision victories in a row, I still think he has that type of potential to hurt Bader here, being the fact that Bader, he's getting up there in age and he's starting to feel these shots. We see it. And then you got Moldavsky, like I said, he knows how to touch his opponents up. And Moldavsky right now, Take a look, 29 years old. The guy is still getting better as a fighter. And when you're sharpening your iron with a guy like Vadim Nemkov, you guys know I'm extremely high on Vadim Nemkov. This could be a little bit of an issue for Bader, in my opinion. But here's the avenue. Now, again, let's be clear. Ryan Bader has an opportunity to do something here. He needs to stick to a game plan. He needs to be using his wrestling very, very much in this fight. And if he has some success with that, and he can start to wear, Moldavsky down, maybe he has some success there. But then there's another issue. Moldavsky is a guy that sometimes is even a little bit of a slow starter and then actually starts to pick things up. So good luck for Bader to really grind him out and wear him out, because I think that Moldavsky comes in phenomenal shape. I've seen him taken down in some of his fights, and then eventually, the tide turns, and then he's taking down his opponent and then working his way to try to brutalize his opponent. So it's just not really, in my opinion, looking too great for Ryan Bader here. We'll see what he could do. Ryan Bader is a very dangerous fighter, and of course, he has all types of potential to pull off the upset here at a plus 205 on DraftKings, but as high as a plus 260 over at BetMGM. Caesars has him at plus 250, and he's a pretty big dog here, man. And it's crazy because just a couple years ago, Ryan Bader, man, the double champ, and a guy that people were really ranting and raving about. Also, do keep in mind, not sure if you guys can even see that right now. Oh, yeah, you can see it right above my head over here. If you look, Moldavsky, multiple time medalist and Sambo world champions. I mean, this is a guy, of course, I mean, not that you wouldn't even know that already. A guy that has a substantial Sambo background, and sometimes it's a different type of grappling and wrestling, but although maybe Bader has some success with some early takedowns, let's not forget that Moldavsky definitely is well-rounded in the grappling as well. And I think this is Moldavsky's fight here, and that's going to be my pick. And that's going to wrap up Bellator 273, again taking place Saturday, and this is a good card here. For the weekend, you guys, let's be precise about the plays that we attack. Let's not get crazy. Let's not have plays all over the board, blowing our accounts here. Let's be precise. Make sure we're on to something with our plays here. Pick something that we're going to hit. Let's bring in a little bit of money this upcoming weekend, and then we'll take that and we'll work it into the following weekend with that UFC event coming in with Sean Strickland coming into town. And there's going to be some spots there. Now, that episode will be getting uploaded to the channel here very soon. Hopefully by at least possibly tomorrow morning. We'll see. Maybe later tonight I'll get that out to you guys. But that's going to be my words of wisdom to you guys. Be selective with your bets this weekend. If I can prevent one of you guys at least from blowing your bankroll, getting drunk, and blowing your account on the casino or making stupid bets, I would feel good about myself there. So remember, hear my voice in your ears. Don't blow your bankrolls this upcoming weekend. Be selective. Lock in a play that we know we're going to hit. Let that play hit, and just take that little bit of money, let it sit in your account, and then we'll look to work with those winnings. All right, guys? So that's my message there. And on that note, signing out, Teller.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.